Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the official launch event of Offshore Wind Learning, the new online course on everything offshore wind. We're really excited for you to join us here today to learn more about the online course and also learn more about how we plan to attract and scale up the offshore wind workforce to meet net zero goals over the next decade. We have an exciting program over the next 45 minutes for you guys here today. We'll start off with the opening remarks from one of our co-founders, Alistair Dutton. And then we'll go into a presentation about the Offshore Wind Learning platform for our other co-founder, Chris Lloyd. And then we'll jump into a panel discussion with our founding partners, Martin Maceo from the Energy Institute, Gwyn Lewis from the Institute for Marine Engineering, Science and Technology. And from the industry, we have Amisha Patel, who is Global Head of Public Affairs and Policy for Mainstream Renewable Power. Following the panel discussion, we'll then have a Q&A, and you can submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar using the Q&A function on your Zoom toolbar. That's enough for me. I'll hand it over to Alistair, who will provide our opening remarks. Over to you, Alistair.
Thank you very much, Elisa. So my name is Alistair Dutton. I've been in offshore wind from when it was a niche technology to where it is now a rapidly expanding sector. Previously, I ran the UK offshore wind programme during the industry's formative years. And in the last 6 years, I've focused on taking offshore wind global, providing strategic advice in 38 countries to date. I'd like to give you some context to offshore wind learning. The International Renewable Energy Agency sees offshore wind as a major technology in combating climate change. Their 1.5 degrees scenario for 2050 requires 2,000 gigawatts of offshore wind. Following their trajectory for the decade ahead requires 554 gigawatts, whereas at the end of 2022, we had 64 gigawatts installed worldwide. If you take the difference and apply a jobs multiplier per megawatt, that gives a number close to 1 million people needed in the sector. Not surprisingly, we're already seeing skill shortages at developers and in many parts of the supply chain. It seems that with offshore wind growing so rapidly around the world, we've become victims of our own success. With this in mind, we've created Offshore Wind Learning to attract as many people as possible into the industry. Offshore Wind Learning is an online course, sometimes called e-learning, comprising 25 lessons grouped into 8 modules, and each lesson is around 20 minutes long. That gives a total of a little over 8 hours of tuition, which can be taken at the learner's preferred pace, from as little as 2 days perhaps to over a few weeks. The course has been written for people from all walks of life, whether they be students or more experienced people coming from other sectors. The course is interactive and absorbing and, dare I say, fun. We could have priced the course at well over £2,000, but since our aim is to attract people into the sector, the price has been set at just £100. I'd especially like to thank our founding partners, the Energy Institute and IMRS, the Institute for Marine Engineering, Science and Technology, for their support. That support includes recognizing the need for such a course, reviewing the content, and lending their networks to spread the word. I posted on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago, and the feedback has been huge and very, very positive. It seems that we are addressing a real need. If you are attending this webinar as a potential learner, we are very excited to meet you. It's good to know that you are 1 in a million. With that, I'll hand back to Alyssa.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Now I'll hand it over to Offshore Wind Learning's other co-founder, Chris Lloyd, to tell you a bit more about the course and what to expect. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Lloyd. I've been lucky enough to work in this industry for 20 years, and I feel privileged to have seen it grow and change over that time. It felt like I spent the first 15 years fighting to convince people that offshore wind was great, and the last 5 working in an environment where people are desperate for more offshore wind. Alistair and I looked at this skills gap 10 years ago while at the Crown Estate, but at that stage we were a bit too early. Growth was moderate and the industry was able to bring people in organically. Next slide, please, Alyssa. This is a graph taken from the course showing the growth in offshore wind capacity that Alistair described. It shows the annual installed capacity and separates it into various regions of the world. Next slide. If you take that growth, which equates to reaching around 1 million people in the next decade, and apply the metric of 2 million people per megawatt, then every team working in offshore wind needs to clone itself to double about every 2.5 years. To put that into perspective, a team of 100 people needs to become a team of 200 people in 30 months. And that's 3 new starters a month. This is from industry forecasts, but we also see the amount of recruitment going on at the moment. Almost every other post on my feed is about recruitment, and new people are joining the organizations I work with on a regular basis. We're moving through a period of rapid turnover in the workforce, where people with skills are attracted into new companies with higher salaries, but that change doesn't solve the skills gap and it's unsustainable. We need to attract new people into this industry. Next slide. So this is where this course comes in, to help bring that 1 million people into industry. Attracting that many new starters will require the course to appeal to a broad set of people. And so we've worked hard to develop and test the content with a range of reviewers of different ages, backgrounds, and skill sets. We've also worked hard to get the learning curve right. We start from the first principles in our fundamentals module and gradually progress into more advanced aspects as we progress through the first few lessons. By the second module, we're into the detail, with knowledge on terminology and important concepts established. Throughout the course, we've inserted relevant advice about how to get along in the industry, including insights into which areas are live debates and which areas are focus of innovation. The course is designed to be globally relevant by covering the range of approaches adopted in all offshore wind markets and by focusing on key principles and underlying concepts. The course has also adopted a modern micro-learning approach to make it more accessible. But what is micro-learning? A lesson adapting micro-learning principles will tell you something using one method, such as an audio narrative or text, then show you the same thing in a different way, such as a graphic or an image, and then, after a short gap, it will simply test and validate the newly acquired knowledge. Let's give you an example. Next slide. How often does the offshore wind workforce need to double? Is it A, every year, every 2.5 years, or every 5 years? Got a bit of an issue with this slide. And I think we're going to run a bit of a poll for those present. Hopefully you'll all recall the answer is every 2.5 years. Microlearning is based on this structure of creating multiple interactions with your memory. You tell you something again in a different way, and then test whether you've understood it and remembered it. Next slide. And the results coming up, excellent. Most people have remembered that information. So microlearning needs to be done in shorter blocks, up to around 20 minutes, which is the length of the lessons in the course. In total, as Alistair said, there'll be 25 lessons split across 8 modules. The curriculum takes learning from development all the way through to decommissioning, with focus points on jobs and careers, supply chain and manufacturing, and project services along the way. The full curriculum is available on our website. To keep things lively and engaging, the information is introduced in a wide variety of methods. In the first 2 modules, we have around 30 bespoke graphics, 20 interactive images and charts, 20 audio narratives, and 10 videos. We've also included badges of completion that are awarded after passing the end of a module test, and a certificate issued on successful completion of the whole course. We're launching the first 2 modules at the moment, and the remaining modules will be released monthly thereafter. This is because we can already feel the urgent need for this course, and we wanted to get it out there, but also because we want the industry to be part of our journey too. We think the course is a bargain at only £100, and it's available now. So let's roll the video and have a look at what the course player looks like.
Welcome to your Offshore Wind Learning journey. This is the first lesson in the course.
This graphic shows all the key parts of an offshore wind farm. If we start with the turbines on the left, we can work all the way through to the onshore substation on the right. The turbines are where we generate electricity.
All right, thank you, Chris, for that. I think the video was lagging a bit, but we'll also have it on our YouTube channel. So now I'm going to hand it over to Alistair, who's going to introduce the panel that we have lined up for our panel discussion today. Over to you, Alistair.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. So I will actually allow the panelists to introduce themselves. We have 3 new panelists. We've got Martin Mazo from Energy Institute, Gwyn Lewis from IMREST, and Amisha Patel from Mainstream. So Martin, could I ask you to introduce yourself?
Of course, Alistair, and good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Martin Mazo. I'm the Technical and Innovation Director at the Energy Institute. And for those of you that don't know about the Energy Institute, we're a charity, a not-for-profit organisation, and we effectively exist to accelerate a just global transition towards net zero. And we effectively do that in 3 ways. One is by attracting and equipping people to the energy sector and making sure they have the skills for the transition. And this is, of course, why we're delighted to be able to be a founding partner with Offshore Wind Learning. But we also provide broader information around energy for those working in energy and associated with energy, so they can make sensible decisions. And in addition to this, we work with industry to help facilitate collaboration across industry, developing good practice to help industry work more efficiently and more safely.
Thank you very much, Martin. And Gwyn, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gwyn Lewis. I'm privileged to be the Chief Executive of the Institute of Marine Engineers, Scientists and Technologists. We're a multidisciplinary, multi-professional body, providing professional support to our members operating in the marine sector.
Thank you. Amisha.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Amisha Patel. I'm Global Head of Policy and Public Affairs at Mainstream Renewable Power. Mainstream is a global renewable energy company developing a fleet of onshore and offshore renewables globally. We are headquartered in Dublin, and we have been involved in the development of offshore wind since the early 2000s. We currently have over 8 gigawatts in development in the UK, Europe, and APAC, and we continue to build our pipeline globally.
Very good. And we've got Chris with us, but you know who he is now. And so a few questions to get us going, and then please post questions using the Q&A function, which we'll get to a little later. So Martin, one of Energy Institute's missions is to develop and equip the future energy workforce. What skills and experience from people working in more conventional energy could they bring to offshore wind?
So thank you, Alistair, for that question. So yes, the EI absolutely has as one of its core raison d'etre is to equip and to skill the workforce fit for the future, for the transition. And it's clear, and we've heard today, that the transition is going to be centered around people. And key to that is that people have the right skills and the right competencies to enable them to achieve a transition towards net zero. We've heard already the demand on people is going to be enormous. You know, we've talked about 1 million people being required in the offshore wind sector by the end of the decade. If you transfer that across to the wider clean tech economy and sector, that's even larger numbers. So great demand of people having the right skills. And the importance of being able to equip people and to bring people into the industry and to enable people to transfer from existing industries is absolutely key and essential in that. And this resonates well with our members. We have 20,000 members at the Energy Institute. We interrogate those members, the energy professionals within that community, every year, asking them about key issues that they're facing, key issues that the industry is facing. And it's clear that they are very, very on board with this idea of the need to transfer skills from existing technologies into offshore wind and other clean tech. 6 in every 10 members want their companies to increase spending and to increase investment in helping them develop their skills to chart a path towards net zero. Members have been asked about skills in the oil and gas and wider energy existing conventional sectors that will be particularly pertinent to offshore wind and to cleaner tech. And they've come back with their views on this. Engineering skills and technical skills are particularly key here. People cite geotechnical skills, surveying skills, subsea, marine engineering, fabrication maintenance, construction, health and safety skills, quality assurance, quality management. Lots of engineering skills, very transferable across industries and across sectors. But also there's a keen desire to see whole system thinking transferred across, the relevance of whole system thinking in that community, as well as critical thinking and project maintenance, project management, understanding different phases of projects and modeling capability. These are all the things cited as key transferable skills. But there are also soft skills that we see as being highly relevant. The ability to communicate clearly, the ability to be effective organizationally, leadership skills, health and safety skills, absolutely key. Teamwork and collaboration, the ability to collaborate with others. And collaboration is really key. It underpins everything we do here at the Energy Institute. And an example of this is the work that we do supporting industry in the offshore wind sector through the work we do in partnership with the G+ Offshore Wind Health and Safety Organization, which effectively exists to improve safety and to drive the safety agenda in the global offshore wind industry. And the EI provides a secretariat to underpin that, ensuring that industry collaborates and identifies through collation of data all of the key issues that they are facing on the safety agenda. And things like lifting, things like working at height, confined space working, human factors, learning from incidents. These are the sort of things that the G+ is working on. And of course, these are the sort of things where there's a wealth of experience in existing industries as well. But of course, the biggest challenge that everyone says in that sector is getting enough people into the industry to actually drive that journey towards net zero. And that's why the broad EI membership is aimed at developing people, equipping them with those skills. And that's why we're so keen to support initiatives like Offshore Wind Learning to ensure that people have the ability to learn about the offshore wind sector and to start that journey and their transfer from one sector to the other.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Can I jump in there, Alistair?
Yeah, go for it.
Is that
Alicia.
okay? Just well, I just really wanted to pick up on some of the remarks that Martin made about some of the soft skills, because I feel that we've had so much of an emphasis on STEM skills and the engineering and plugging those gaps that sometimes those can be the softer side can be overlooked. We've almost gone the other way. So it's really great to see a learning resource that is really encompassing the entire value chain. But I also wanted to pick up on the efforts that the Energy Institute has made towards diversity, inclusion, and equity as well, and bringing that into the energy sector as well. I think it's very commendable work that's been done there, and having an educational resource and a knowledge sharing resource that allows a broad group and audience to come in really really opens up opportunities to a more diverse and equitable and inclusive workforce as well. So I just wanted to raise that.
Very good. Thank you for that injection. I'll try again. Gwyn, the growth of offshore wind globally will involve multiple marine sectors. What would you say to young people thinking of joining offshore wind?
Go for it. I couldn't encourage anyone with an interest towards the environmental challenges that we have, or to engineering and science more generally. Couldn't encourage them to join any other sector with the same degree of optimism for the future. And it's really important that young people do invest their time and efforts in a career that gives them the opportunity for it providing that future. One only has to search the internet to find the incredibly impressive statistics relating to offshore wind. And if you research them one day, then the next day they've been surpassed, and the numbers are even bigger. This year, by one estimate, $56 billion will be invested in offshore wind. And that's seen to grow by the same report to 126 billion by 2030. So it's an area that's predicting tremendous growth and tremendous investment, but also an industry, despite the sort of transition that Chris and Alistair have mentioned, that still has a great deal of excitement around innovation associated with it. And back in end of January, the UK government announced a major investment and supporting industry towards innovation, particularly around the floating offshore wind technologies. So it's a very exciting space to be in, and one which UK PLC takes a very significant role in. And the UK's capacity is circa 15 gigawatts. Alistair, you'll say that it's more like 20, and that represents approximately 20-25% of the global wind generated capacity. So this is an excellent place to start your career, to develop your skill sets, but potentially to apply them globally. So what reason is there not for young people to join an exciting and dynamic sector, and one which involves multi-professions as well as multi-skills, and the reference to the softer skills, so that there are a role here for the scientists, whether that's in assessing the environmental conditions for a future wind farm, or the environmental impact, to engineers to help in the design, the installation, the fabrication, and ultimately the decommissioning of such facilities, and the technologists that will be integral in designing the systems and in the operation. So it's a really exciting space to be. And just to put it into perspective, perhaps for some people in the start of their career, you know, one of the large wind turbines, 167 meters diameter, in the space of one revolution, it sweeps the path equivalent to 3 soccer pitches, and it will generate enough electricity to power a home for 24 hours. You know, that the stats are fantastic. It's a really inspirational and yet at the same time challenging space to be, and it's a great place for people to start their careers or to transition their careers towards.
Very good. Thank you very much. Amisha, beyond just developing a skilled workforce, what is the importance of educating other stakeholders like investors, policymakers, and communities on offshore wind for the long-term success of the sector?
Thank you, Alistair. Well, I think it's pivotal. I mean, if we take policymakers, offshore wind development is driven by policy. Especially in the last couple of years, we've seen a rapid acceleration of ambition for offshore wind, with more and more countries putting targets into place. And whilst development must be tailored to the unique needs of a country, a lot of governments are looking to get up to speed and relatively quickly by acquiring knowledge of what has already been done before. So I know we're not looking at a blanket approach, but we're definitely looking for guiding principles. So for emerging markets, there's an opportunity to learn from international best practice, which is starting to form amongst developed markets, and you know why we're here today launching this wonderful platform. And then you see a lot of agencies within markets which are developing their industries starting from scratch, but they're relied upon to make important decisions about the sector and its future within their markets. So having knowledge sharing resources and platforms are very, very useful. If we look at communities, any developer will tell you how critical community acceptance and public acceptance is to the success of any project. It's a very critical part of it. And successful project development lies in early engagement and effective dialogue around the project with local stakeholders. So we really want to empower communities with knowledge so that we can actually have integrity and trust built into the process, and have questions and potential challenges identified early on and bring solutions together. So knowledge is power in that respect. And again, having an independent resource where that knowledge can be acquired is very, very critical. I'd say innovation and partnerships as well. I think educating, we've seen this with how the sector has developed so far. Educating allows greater pathways to innovation and partnerships. So we want that to spread, and we've mentioned the diversification to the oil and gas sector, to offshore wind, and particularly floating offshore wind now. So a wider audience enables us to bring new skills to the sector and more innovation there as well. And then I guess with investors, understanding the technology, because the risk profiles are so different, even for onshore renewables where there's a lot of experience, and now offshore, it's very, very different. So better investment decisions can be formed. So I guess there's something in it for everyone.
Very good. Chris, it's your turn now. So people who join the offshore wind sector rarely leave it. What is it about offshore wind that is so personally engaging?
Thanks, Alistair. Yeah, it's true. It's true. People tend not to leave the offshore wind sector. I think one of the key reasons behind that is because it is a growing sector and it's a very diverse sector. So you can come into the industry working on the development side of it, and within 5-10 years, you can choose to move to the operations or the construction side of it. Within the industry, there are multiple career paths so that you can develop your career, develop your work, and work in different ways over long periods of time. I think that's a fundamental reason, the growth. It's also a very fun place to work. You know, it's very dynamic and it's very lively, and there is a real sense of achievement of taking a part of building something that is just bigger than you expect, even if you work in the industry. These projects are huge, they're very exciting. There's a lot of new exciting technology in them themselves, but there's a lot of new and exciting processes and new and exciting things all around in terms of how we engage with stakeholders, how we look after the environment, and how we look after the people that work in the sector. Finally, I would just say that, you know, a project takes a long time from the early stage of developing a market to drawing first lines on a map through to the end of construction is going to be more than 10 years. And then you operate a project for 25 years. So you can work through the whole lifetime of a project working in different areas, and that creates this sense of ownership of what you're working on. And I think it's that ownership, and once people join the industry, they really feel part of the industry, and that keeps them in it.
Thank you very much. Actually, we've got questions coming in from the audience, so thank you for those. The first is actually for you, Chris, again. Who is the course targeted at in relation to experience levels? Is it focused on new starts into the offshore wind industry only, or a general intro to the sector?
That's a good question. So we've tried to develop this course so that it does a bit of everything, really. At the start, it's really talking about initial terminology and the way the industry works and is set up so that you get this sort of foundation principles. And that's really for people who've got no background in offshore wind at all. But as we move through into the more involved and more complex sectors, complex modules, we're still trying to develop those people who are new to the sector, but it would also be applicable to people who are in similar sectors, who want to jump across to a different industry, or also for continuing professional development within a sector. If you're working in development and you want to learn a bit more about construction or operation, this course would also work for you.
Thank you very much. And a question for Gwyn, possibly also for Martin, if you want to come in. It still seems that, start again. It still seems that there are blockers to some renewable energy organisations seeing oil and gas skills and experience as wholly transferable. What can individuals do more in this space to show themselves as a credible candidate?
I think the answer there is, you know, to research the industry, to talk with employers, to network at events, and to really get a feeling as to, you know, where their skills are transferable and applicable, and which organisations will further develop their skills so that they can have a successful and progressive career when they make that transition.
And Martin, do you want to come in there as well?
I mean, I'd very much support that answer, but I'd also say that, you know, and building on that, the key thing here is the collaboration thing. So, you know, certainly my experience of working with people in the oil and gas sector and in the renewable sector is that, you know, there's a lot more that binds people together than that separates people in terms of topic, skills and issues, you know, and particularly around the health and safety issue, where with the G+ I mentioned, we work very close to the G+. I mean, there is just an appetite and a real desire to share learning, to share experiences, to share knowledge. But of course, you know, you can't do that unless you engage and collaborate and talk with, you know, and mix those communities, which I'd say is finding ways to do that is key.
Yeah.
Very good.
Can I jump in there as well? As a developer, growing our workforce as well, I think we very much seek skills from different disciplines and different sectors. Agreeing with a lot of what Gwyn and Martin have said, and, you know, ask questions. Networking is really pivotal. I think for myself, in my own experience, breaking into the sector came through mentorship. You know, we've got LinkedIn and we've got social media, which gives us access to so many professionals within the field as well. It's all digital. So reach out, and if you're curious and you have an interest, the industry, not just mainstream, the whole industry wants people that are enthusiastic about offshore wind and growing their workforce. So ask the questions, I would say.
Yeah, and Amisha, just to sort of build upon that, if I may, and also Martin's comments, you know, employers will typically recruit people against a job specification and hope to bring people in that are an immediate fit, and, you know, that's a natural inclination. But the real strength of an organization is by employing sort of the multidisciplinary, the multi-professional approach to problem solving. So having people join the offshore wind industry from different sectors where they've solved different types of problems and have experienced different issues is a real strength in the longer term. And we see that in our special interest groups where we have environmentalists, technologists, scientists, engineers, all working to develop solutions or to evaluate proposals from that multidisciplinary perspective. And it's incredible value that's available as an opportunity to the sector.
Very good. And we have a question for you, Amisha. It's quite a long one, so bear with me. It's often said that a lot of human resources are needed to make the energy transition happen through offshore wind. But there are a lot of challenges, like only hiring on a project-based need, hiring across over 3 continents with language and cultural barriers, office politics, etc. How can a strong education background help to overcome these challenges?
Wow. Okay, let me have a moment to think about this one. I guess, well, first of all, I think the energy transition, and we're looking at the offshore wind sector, and we talked about the pipeline. So the scale of ambition is translating to opportunity in a range of markets. If we look at the comparison from 5-10 years ago to the corners of the world that are opening up the sector now, there's hardly anywhere with a coastline that isn't looking at offshore wind development. So that in itself opens up the scale of opportunity. And we've also talked about the workforce that is needed to deliver on this ambition as well. I think there's more access to resource and educational sources, like resources that is being launched today, but maybe not particularly visible to prospective candidates or to workforces. So maybe as an industry, as we've taken the step here today, we need to do more of that to encourage that building of knowledge within organizations and outside that as well. In terms of cultural barriers as well, there's initiatives that the sector have put in place. The Women in Wind program, which is run by the Global Wind Energy Council, looks at bringing in women from across different backgrounds and different communities into the wind sector through providing educational and mentorship resources as well. So I think it's that marrying up of the resource that is available and to the people that are interested. I guess that's how I would approach that question.
Thank you very much. We've got time for one more question. That one just disappeared. Never mind, we'll go for this one instead. It's from the audience. This one's for Chris. I'm from a consulting background and was wondering what day-to-day skills would this course give me? I'm thinking about specific skills required and can be applied to a job role rather than just understanding how the offshore wind sector works.
That's a good question. So what we try and do with this course is to give you the sort of underlying principles and the underlying concepts of what's going on throughout the life cycle of an offshore wind farm. What people, I think when people look at the industry, they think the turbine is just engineers working on a turbine, and the consenting aspect is just ecologists looking at, wildlife. But in reality, in this industry, everything meshes in together and creates this complex web. So I will be working on a consent problem, but I'll need to talk to procurement, I'll need to talk to engineering, I'll need to talk to finance, I'll need to talk to all different people in the business, because everything associated with the design and the delivery of an offshore wind farm is like in balance. You can have a wind farm that generates more power, but it might have higher environmental impacts, and so that's a risk. But you have to manage those things by working collectively as a team. And so really what the focus is, I think people see offshore wind as being this siloed businesses that just do these little narrow things. It doesn't work like that. It works as this holistic team organization. And so understanding where your skills fit into that team and understanding what everybody else is doing is a key learning. And I think with people entering the industry already knowing what the different functions do and why, it enables you to apply your skills in a much more meaningful way.
Thank you. We're going to wrap up, but before we do, could I ask Martin and then Gwyn to explain the offers that you're very generously making to people that come to Offshore Wind Learning if they then come to your organisations? So Martin, if you'd like to go first.
Certainly, yeah. So we have an offer for everybody who signs up for the training. Will get a 25% discount on their membership for the EI, and that membership will enable them to access our library, our portfolio, get a discount on courses, training, and the other benefits that the Institute offers.
And Gwyn.
Yeah, so we're offering the course participants who are not members of IMRS already to receive up to 6 months of free membership with us, so that they can experiment and explore the resources that we have, can get involved in our activities, including our offshore renewables special interest group, and we're hoping that after that period they'll then choose to renew their membership with us at normal rates.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll call the panel session to a close and pass back to Alyssa to take us home.
Thank you, Alistair, and thanks to all of our panelists for sharing your experience in the offshore wind sector and also about the course. I'm just going to wrap things up. So I hope you found this launch event informative, and I hope you're excited as we are about offshore wind learning and the offshore wind sector more generally. On your screen, you'll see a QR code now. If you scan that QR code, it'll take you to our website, www.offshorewindlearning.com, where you can always find out more about the course, see the full course curriculum, learn about our co-founders, and learn more about offshore wind. Thank you so much for everyone joining us here today. I hope you found it informative, and I hope to see you on Offshore Wind Learning.